Before we begin, if you're fascinated by real criminal investigations, hidden evidence, and the psychology behind true crime, subscribe now. We uncover a new real case every week. September 19th, 2021. Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area. Located in Bridger-Teton National Forest, Wyoming, USA. After days of searching, FBI agents, in coordination with local law enforcement, discovered a body in the deserted campground. It was where Gabby Petito's white van had been seen before she disappeared. Just hours later, the family was notified. The body was identified as Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old who had gone missing after a cross-country trip with her fiancé. But one detail made the whole case unusual. Nearly 3 weeks before the body was found, Brian Laundrie had driven Gabby's van home to North Port, Florida, alone. Gabby was not with him. Brian also did not report her missing. During the days Gabby's family desperately searched for their daughter, Brian remained silent. Initially, it was treated as a missing person case. But after the autopsy, the official conclusion completely changed the direction of the investigation. The cause of death was determined to be homicide. The direct cause was manual strangulation. That meant Gabby hadn't disappeared. She had been murdered. And if Brian Laundrie was the last known person to have been with Gabby Petito, then what really happened between the two of them at that remote campsite? But that's just the first point. Before Gabby Petito's name appeared in news reports across America, she was just a young woman trying to make her dreams come true. Gabby Petito, 22 years old. Growing up in Long Island, New York, in a close-knit family. Those who knew her often described Gabby as gentle, friendly, and affectionate. She loved animals. She enjoyed being creative, and she always sought beauty in the simple things in life. One of Gabby's greatest passions was photography. She loved capturing landscapes, everyday moments, and her travels through her own lens. Not only did she want to preserve memories, but Gabby also hoped to share them with others. That's why she started pursuing the van life lifestyle. A life in a van, traveling through national parks, long roads, and the vast landscapes of America. Gabby and Brian planned to turn that trip into a months-long adventure. She built a travel blog. At the same time, she started developing a YouTube channel, hoping to document all her experiences. For Gabby, this was more than just a trip. It was the beginning of the life she had always dreamed of. A life of freedom, traveling to many places, being creative, telling her own stories. Behind the sunny photos and short videos were many unfinished plans. Gabby still had a whole future ahead of her. Places she wanted to visit, videos she wanted to make, and dreams she believed she had enough time to fulfill. At that time, no one could have known that the journey, which was expected to open a new chapter in Gabby's life, would become her last. Gabby Petito's constant companion on her cross-country trip across America is Brian Laundrie. He is her fiancé, her boyfriend, and also her partner on every step of the van life project they both pursue. On social media, Brian appears quite private. He loves nature. He enjoys camping. He prefers a minimalist lifestyle and spends most of his time amidst mountains, rivers, and streams in his small van. Each photo posted evokes a sense of peace. They walk together on trails. They watch sunsets in national parks. A life seemingly unburdened by the rhythm of everyday life. On Instagram, Gabby and Brian are seen by many as a role model of a young couple living their dreams. A van, a camera, a few clothes, and America ahead. Few realize that behind those smiles lie unrecorded tensions. Cameras can capture scenery, but they can't capture every argument. Social media can tell stories of happy days, but it often misses the moments when cracks begin to appear in a relationship. No one knows. Behind those perfect photos, their relationship is slowly falling apart. Looking solely at Instagram, it's difficult to spot signs of a troubled relationship. But as investigators pieced together the events leading up to Gabby's disappearance, warning signs began to emerge. The first sign came from a 911 call on August 12, 2021. The caller reported seeing Brian assaulting Gabby outside a store in Moab, Utah. This information prompted a swift response from local police. From that call, a video was captured that would later become one of the most viewed pieces of evidence in the case. It was a Moab police body cam. In the video, Gabby is crying. Her voice is trembling. Her breathing is rapid. She consistently displays tension and anxiety throughout her conversation with the police. Meanwhile, Brian gives a completely different impression. He speaks calmly. He answers coherently. Gabby repeatedly took the initiative to lead the conversation and explain what had happened from her perspective. This contrast was later analyzed by many experts on violence in relationships, although the video itself couldn't definitively determine what had happened beforehand. Another factor contributed to the increased pressure. Gabby and Brian lived for weeks in a small van. The space was cramped. There was little privacy. They were constantly moving across multiple states. It was an environment where small disagreements could quickly escalate into major arguments. In the body cam video, Gabby apologized several times. She often took the blame herself. She also expressed her worry that Brian would leave with the van. If that happened, Gabby would be left alone in a strange place. At that time, no one could say for sure what these signs would lead to. But looking back after everything that happened, these events become crucial pieces of the puzzle that help explain why that seemingly perfect relationship was gradually heading towards collapse. To this day, the FBI has never released the exact details of what transpired between Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie in the final hours before her death. There are no recordings. Neither are there any direct witnesses, and there is no testimony from Brian. Therefore, no one can definitively say what the final argument began. What can be determined is that their relationship had been strained beforehand. The 911 call, the body cam video from Moab, Gabby's signs of anxiety, and the pressure of weeks spent in the cramped space of the van. All of this suggests that their conflict was not a sudden event. According to the investigation, the cross-country journey, which was expected to be a memorable experience, gradually became a source of stress for both of them. Constant travel, lack of personal space, prolonged disagreements, and escalating emotions. These were factors that could have caused the conflict to escalate. But exactly what happened at the campsite in Wyoming remains a gap that the investigation file could not fill. Brian Laundrie never offered an explanation for Gabby's final hours. And then, he never had the chance to do so. All that remained was a chain of evidence that investigators had to piece together. That was the point, when all the warning signs were no longer just warnings. Following the events in Moab, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie's journey continued. On the surface, it seemed that things weren't over. But the subsequent chain of events left many gaps that no one has been able to fully fill to this day. On August 24, 2021, both were confirmed to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. That was one of the last times their journey was clearly documented. The next day, August 25th, Gabby made her last confirmed call to her mother. No one knew that would be the last time her family would hear her voice. According to the investigation's conclusions, August 27th is believed to be the last time Gabby was alive. What happened during that time was never fully disclosed by the FBI. There were no direct witnesses. There was no account from the last person known to have been with her. Only silences remained in the timeline. On August 30th, Gabby's family received a text message from her phone mentioning Yosemite. Investigators later concluded that this message did not accurately reflect Gabby's location at the time and became part of the investigation. 2 days later, September 1st, Brian Laundrie drove his van home to Northport, Florida, alone. Gabby was not with him. Brian also did not report his fiancée missing to the authorities. Time continued to pass. Gabby's family grew increasingly worried as all attempts to contact her went unanswered. On September 11th, she was officially reported missing. A large-scale search was quickly launched across multiple states. 8 days later, September 19th, 2021, the FBI search team discovered Gabby Petito's body in the Spread Creek dispersed camping area within Bridger-Teton National Forest, Wyoming. The gap between these dates lasted less than a month, but that gap became central to the entire investigation. Because during the days Gabby was missing, only one person was known to have been with her in her final moments. On September 1st, 2021, Brian Laundrie drove Gabby Petito's van back to Northport, Florida. He returned alone. Gabby was not there. In the days that followed, Brian did not report Gabby missing. He also did not contact her family to explain what had happened. When investigators and Gabby's family tried to reach him, Brian did not answer questions. Following the advice of his lawyer, he remained silent and uncooperative with the investigation. Meanwhile, records later showed that Gabby's debit card had been used after the time she was presumed dead. This detail became part of the federal investigation and later led to accusations that Brian had illegally used Gabby's financial device. While the search for Gabby expanded, life around the Laundrie family home continued as usual. But then the timeline took another turn. On September 13th, Brian left home. According to his family, he said he was going to Carlton Reserve. He never returned. It wasn't until September 17th that the family notified the police that Brian was missing. In just a few days, the search for one missing person had turned into a search for two. This time, the person investigators were looking for wasn't Gabby. It was Brian Laundrie, a man who had just lost his fiancée. Why did he disappear precisely when the FBI was beginning to focus all its resources on the investigation? After Gabby Petito was reported missing, the FBI began reconstructing her entire journey with Brian Laundrie. Instead of relying on a single piece of evidence, investigators gathered small pieces of information to piece together a final timeline. One breakthrough came from dash cam footage inadvertently recorded by the couple traveling with Red, White, and Bethune. Gabby's white van was spotted on the roadside in Spread Creek dispersed camping area on August 27th. The video helped pinpoint the area the search team needed to focus on. From there, the FBI cross-referenced additional location data, information from her phone, GPS records, and other digital traces left over from the trip. Simultaneously, bank transactions were also examined. Gabby's debit card usage after the time she was presumed dead became a crucial part of the federal investigation. Investigators also interviewed people who had been in contact with Brian during the final days of his journey. Among them was a couple who said they had given Brian a ride near Grand Teton National Park. Their accounts added to the travel history before Brian returned to Florida. In addition to new witnesses, the FBI reviewed body cam footage recorded by Moab police on August 12th. What was once considered a minor argument between two young people was now being evaluated in a completely different context. Every video clip, every testimony, every piece of electronic data, all became part of the bigger picture. When everything was put together, the search narrowed, and all roads ultimately led investigators back to Spread Creek, where the answers they had been searching for all these days lay. When Gabby Petito's body was found, the investigation entered a completely different phase. For the first time, investigators were able to compare all the physical evidence with the previously reconstructed timeline. The first piece of evidence came from the autopsy report. The medical examiner determined Gabby's death was a homicide. The cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation. This conclusion put an end to any theory that Gabby simply went missing or had an accident during her trip. The second piece of evidence lay in the digital data. The FBI compared information from her phone, bank transactions, travel history, and the entire itinerary of the two in their final days. This chain of data helped investigators redetermine the sequence of events, while also refuting the theory that Gabby was still alive after her death was determined. Each piece of data reinforced the same conclusion. Gabby didn't disappear. She was murdered. The final piece of evidence only emerged after Brian Laundrie was also found dead. Beside Brian's remains, investigators seized a notebook. In that notebook were entries that the FBI later revealed showed Brian taking responsibility for Gabby's death. For the investigation, this was the final piece of evidence closing the chain of events that had begun weeks earlier in Wyoming, from the forensic conclusions to the electronic data, then the confession found in the notebook. These three layers of evidence completed the picture that investigators had spent weeks piecing together. The ultimate truth no longer lay in theories. It lay in the very evidence the case left behind. This case did not end with an arrest. There was no scene of Brian Laundrie being handcuffed. There was no formal interrogation. And there was no trial where Gabby Petito and her family could receive answers in public. On September 13th, 2021, while the investigation was focused on Gabby's disappearance, Brian left his home in Florida. According to his family, he went to the Carlton Reserve. He never returned. The FBI and local authorities launched a large-scale search. Search teams scoured the vast swampy area. Airplanes, sniffer dogs, and specialized vehicles were deployed. For weeks, Brian was not found. On October 20th, 2021, investigators discovered his remains in the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. Some personal belongings were found nearby. Among those items was a notebook that would later become the most crucial piece of evidence in the final stages of the investigation. Inside the notebook, Brian wrote that he took responsibility for Gabby's death. That confession of responsibility couldn't replace an interrogation, nor could it answer all the questions about what happened in Wyoming. But when placed alongside the forensic report, phone data, bank transactions, and travel timeline, the notebook became the final piece of the puzzle. In January 2022, the FBI released its investigation findings. The agency determined that Brian Laundrie was solely responsible for Gabby Petito's death. The search was over, but not through a trial. Brian did not face a jury. He did not answer questions from Gabby's family. He did not hear the verdict read in the courtroom. His downfall did not occur in front of the cameras. It ended in silence. Beside it was a notebook containing the final confession. Brian Laundrie's death closed the possibility of the case going to trial. There was no trial, no jury, no criminal conviction. Many questions Gabby's family hoped to hear directly from Brian would forever remain unanswered. All that remained was the entire investigative file compiled by the FBI over many months. Investigators compared every piece of evidence, from forensic conclusions, phone data, bank transaction history, location information, witness testimony, to the contents found in the notebook next to Brian's remains. Each piece of evidence was examined independently, then placed together in a timeline. When the whole picture was complete, the FBI reached its final conclusion. Brian Laundrie was solely responsible for Gabby Petito's death. The investigation also found no evidence of any accomplices participating in or assisting the crime. Criminally, the case ended there. Not because all questions had been answered, but because the only person who could face charges had died before being arrested and brought to trial. From that point on, the FBI's file was no longer focused on tracking down suspects. The ultimate goal was to establish the full truth, close the investigation, and provide Gabby's family with an official conclusion based on the evidence gathered. After the investigation concluded, Gabby Petito's story didn't end with the FBI files. For her parents, the loss remained present every day. But instead of letting the tragedy end, they chose to turn their grief into action. They founded the Gabby Petito Foundation. The organization's goal is to support families of missing persons, raise awareness about violence in relationships, and promote community education about often overlooked warning signs. From a case that shocked America, the discussion gradually expanded to larger issues. How to find missing persons faster, how to ensure victims of violence in relationships are heard sooner, and how to help those around them recognize the cries for help before things go too far. The body cam footage from Moab also became the subject of numerous professional reviews. Many experts on domestic violence believe the case highlights the complexity of relationships involving control and psychological trauma. Following this, the Moab Police Department conducted an internal review of its handling of the case, while law enforcement agencies across the United States continued to discuss training officers to recognize signs of coercive control, manipulation, and the potential for escalating violence. The case also led to increased discussion of the concept of red flags in media campaigns and public education. Not every sign leads to a crime, but many serious acts of violence begin with seemingly small signs: isolation, fear, constant apologies, a feeling of having to take all the blame, or increasing control in a relationship. Recognizing these signs earlier may not have changed the past, but sometimes it can change someone else's future. Gabby Petito no longer has the chance to continue the journey she once dreamed of. But her story continues to be told, not to fuel curiosity about a crime, but to remind us that behind beautiful photos, dream trips, or a seemingly perfect life, there can still be cries for help that are hard to see. And sometimes, the most important thing isn't knowing what happened in the end, but recognizing the warning signs before tragedy begins. There are relationships that look perfect in every picture. Every smile, a trip, every shared moment. All of them can make outsiders believe that everything is fine. But sometimes, the warning signs appear long before the tragedy occurs. They aren't always obvious. Sometimes it's just increasing control, isolation, fear, or the repeated apologies of someone slowly losing themselves. The hardest thing isn't finding the truth behind a crime. It's recognizing the warnings when there's still time to save a life. If Gabby Petito's story leaves a lesson, it's not just a lesson about investigation. It also serves as a reminder that listening, caring, and recognizing the red flags in a relationship can make the difference between a chance to be protected and a loss that can never be recovered. Do you think this tragedy could have been prevented? Why? Share your thoughts in the comments below.